The White House has a new Clintonian look. President Obama retooled his economic team in an attempt to reach out to business with a more centrist cast and, by the way, save his political skin. So, can we trust and verify? Here now is CNBC contributor, Washington Post columnist Matt Miller. He's the host of Public Radio's popular Week in Review, Left, Right, and Center. And we bring back former Medtronic chairman and CEO Bill George, who now teaches at Harvard Business School. Gentlemen, Happy New Year to both of you. Bill George, okay, I get this. Everybody has good things to say about Bill Daley, including me. And, by the way, Gene Sperling coming in to take the Larry Summers job. Good. I want to ask you, Bill, in your opinion, is the era of big government now over with this recasting in the White House?
Well, I think the jury's still out, Larry, but I'm optimistic. I wore my green tie tonight because I think we're on the verge of being able to make some money again in this country and get the country moving again. I don't think bringing back in Clinton veterans is a bad idea at all. I think Daley and Sperling are excellent. But I think the real question goes deeper. What's on the mind of the president? Are these just astute political moves, which everyone's going to applaud in the center and the right and the left is going to complain? Or is the president really learning in office? I'd like to think it's more the latter, that he really is, like President Clinton, realizing he needs the private sector. That's where the money is made. That's where the country grows. That's where tax receipts come from. They don't come from the public sector. And I'm hopeful that he'll realize he's going to have to cut deficits. The Bowles-Simpson report had some good, sound advice, and he's going to have to make some aggressive moves like he's been doing to accelerate depreciation, accelerate R&D, and accelerate exports and get jobs going, because the jobs report is still not all that optimistic.
We'll try to turn around on all these issues, but Matt Miller, I want to ask you the same thing. Look, it was Bill Clinton who famously said the era is big government is over. I believe that was in his 1996 State of the Union message, if I'm not mistaken. You worked for Bill Clinton. The question that Bill George is asking and others are asking today, everybody likes Bill Daley. Everybody likes Bill Daley. Most people like Gene Sperling. I certainly do. He's a very pragmatic guy. But what about Obama's beliefs, and therefore what kind of support will he give his pro-business centrist chief of staff, Bill Daley? And do you really believe, Matt Miller, the era of big government is over?
I think calling it the era of big government is the wrong way to look at it. When Obama came in, he had to deal with very serious crisis management that required government, not just the federal government, but also the Federal Reserve, to take actions that in ordinary times no one would welcome. But it was crisis management. You had to pragmatically throw a lot of spaghetti against the wall to avoid a depression. We did that. The shift now is, how do we get from crisis management to some kind of sustainable recovery? And as Bill said, and you've said, how do we get the jobs machine back on track? We know from all the research, from Reinhardt and others, that when a debt bubble like this explodes, it takes years to get jobs back. Bernanke talked about that in his testimony today. So the question is, are there ways to accelerate that and jumpstart it through cutting corporate taxes, cutting payroll taxes, but offsetting those tax cuts with revenue, say, from consumption taxes or dirty energy,
or spending cuts,
click in
or
once unemployment.
How about spending cuts, my friend Matt Miller? You are an alumnus of the Clinton Office of Management and Budget. How about spending cuts?
We did a lot of spending cuts, and remember, the Clinton left office with the only surpluses we've had, in decades. So we need spending cuts also, but you're kidding yourself, as I said to you before, Larry, if you don't think revenue has to be part of the picture, especially if we're going to cut corporate taxes and payroll taxes. You can't just leave a hole there.
All right, Bill George, last night Jack Welch was on. He is an admirer of Bill Daley. But Jack was hard-hitting regarding regulatory obstacles to jobs and economic growth. And I want to put two things on the table. Mr. Obama supported financial regulation. Bill Daley did not. Bill Daley is likely to muzzle Elizabeth Warren. Big story about that in the New York Post today. Second, Obama is going to defend Obamacare to the bitter end, but Bill Daley is opposed to Obamacare. Now, those are wedges between the new chief of staff and the president. Who's going to win?
Well, the president's going to win, but I think that's why I say it's uncertain what the president wants. If he realizes we have to be more pragmatic, we're not going to throw out health care reform, but we need to be pragmatic in how it's implemented. Same on financial services reform, Larry. We can't just let the liberal regulators go wild here. We have to be pragmatic. I go back to Matt on jobs. You know, jobs are going to create revenue and income, but you can't demonize the employers that create those jobs. We have to work with them, and there are ways to work with them. I think CEOs, and I talked to probably 4 dozen CEOs in the last 30 days, they are saying they're willing now to give the president a second look. That wasn't true 3 months
George,
ago. But
I don't want to be disrespectful, but I want to ask you. You were an opponent of Obamacare. And,
right.
you know, to my lights, the right position. Matt's going to disagree. But the point I'm asking is these health care regulatory obstacles and taxes are job killers. And many believe that, for example, the Consumer Financial Bureau, headed by Elizabeth Warren, which may be under attack, she may be under attack by Daley, these are job killers. So how do we get what we want? Corporate tax cut, great. But if we don't solve the regulatory problems, we're not going to have what we want, Bill. That's my point. That's my question. I'll let Matt weigh in. You first, Bill George.
Well, I've lived with the FDA for 15 years, Larry, and fought with them. The regulators can kill you, and they still are killing health care, by the way, not approving all kinds of drugs and devices. And so I think the president just can't let them go wild. I think there has to be control and say, we need to be pragmatic. Remember, in health care, McDonald's got an exemption. Maybe they have to be more of that. Maybe we have to make some compromise changes, and I think a lot of things about the health care bill are wrong, but it's going to take a long time to get them right. But I think we have to go slowly and just ramming it through on
Matt
all
Miller,
of these things.
You know, Matt, the Clinton people were not the big regulators that the Obama crowd has proven to be so far. And Bill Daley is through and through a Clinton guy. He's pro-business. How does this regulatory stuff get resolved, Matt Miller?
Again, I think you're overstating the Obama focus on regulation. We had a financial system meltdown that was like a once-in-a-50-year event. I'm sure my friend Bill George would agree that investment banks leveraging themselves at 30 or 40 to 1 is not a prudent way to run a financial system. So the idea that we need some regulation to try and restore balance and prudence to our financial system was smart. On health care, I agree. There are parts of the health care bill that are overreaching. But the basic structure of it is built on the Mitt Romney Heritage Foundation approach, which is not a radical lefty approach. It's to subsidize people to buy insurance from among competing private insurers, and it's not being phased in until 2014. So there is a go slow approach to this. The real question is how to accelerate job growth in the near term, not to fight about whether Obama's pro-business or anti-business, and I think the White House was smart to take the optics off the table.
I say let's trust, but I've got to verify. And I think these regulatory questions are extremely important. We'll see how it comes out. Matt Miller, thank you very much. Bill George, likewise, great to see both of you.